Professor, you take serious issue with what the president did on the ground to cover, but I want to start with something you just wrote moments ago about these pardons. You say it echoes the president's outrageous embrace of the good KKK Nazi marchers and murderers of Charlottesville. How so?
Well, it's really a sad phenomenon, but when the president tried to say both sides have good people, including the Nazis, he was basically sending a white racist dog whistle. And these pardons in many ways do very much the same thing. Dinesh D'Souza is one of the birther conspiracy guys who's tweeted terribly racist things. And Joe Arpaio, the first pardoned guy, was obviously involved in racially targeting certain immigrants and violated the court order that told him to stop. Even Jack Johnson, the one guy who probably deserved the pardon, the posthumous pardon of the famous boxer, was convicted of violating a sex trafficking law. So there are three levels on which these pardons are sending scary signals. One, as your earlier people on the show indicated, they're sending signals to potential witnesses. They're part of an obstruction of justice cover-up. Two, they are sending signals against equal justice under law, basic norms of equality. He's pardoning the rich, the famous. And three, probably the most serious problem, is that he is sending signals that you don't even have to obey the courts. You can be held in contempt to violate a court order the way Joe Arpaio did, and you're home free if you are a fan of Donald Trump.
All right, so let's try to understand each of those three things, and let's start with what the Constitution actually says about the power to pardon. Article 2, Section 2 says the president shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Are there any limits, aside from impeachment, are there any limits to this power, Professor?
Every power of the president is limited by the impeachment clause. It says that if you commit treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, you are to be removed from office after you're convicted by the Senate. That is a clear signal that no presidential power is totally absolute. Because if, for example, a president accepts bribes in order to pardon his buddies, his friends, clearly that is a high crime and misdemeanor. If the president uses pardons to cover up his own crimes by dangling a get-out-of-jail-free card to people who might otherwise be witnesses against him, that's part of an obstruction of justice, which was the key article of impeachment against Nixon.
In this case, how does that work? This is some kind of prophylactic obstruction of justice, signaling that I might pardon you somewhere down the line if you don't testify?
Exactly. I mean, when he pardons these people, Roger Stone said that he read the pardons this way. He basically said he felt comforted by these pardons. People like Stone and Manafort and others have made it very clear that from their perspective, when the president shows by flexing the pardon muscle that he can have your back if you have his, they get it.
But until
these people are not stupid.
Until he actually pardons them, I don't know how you'd ever prove that.